Speed wobbles, death wobbles, tank slappers, whatever you want to call them, they're really scary to have when you're riding on the street and you have a bunch of idiots driving cars around you, right? Since my bike, the 2015 Yamaha Bolt that I ride, has one of the worst death wobbles that you can have in the marketplace, I wanted to talk about some of the remedies that I've come across in trying to fix the steering issue, if you will. There's a lot of different reasons as to why death wobble can even initiate in a motorcycle. So many other creators have covered in depth on geometry, doing a wheelie, having the speed out of balance between the front and rear tires. There's a lot of different reasons, but I want to talk about my personal case with my Yamaha Bolt and what I did to remedy the issue as much as I possibly can. So the spoiler alert is that it didn't completely go away, but we reduced it probably 90%, which is honestly way better than where it was before, and it doesn't worry me now like it did in the past. So if you guys do like this video, please give me some feedback, give me a thumbs up, share a comment, whatever it might be. Let's jump into it. So to set the stage, let's talk about specifically what I'm running into with my bike. So if you own a Yamaha Bolt or looked into them as a cruiser option, you've probably heard of this death wobble. It's pretty infamous. It's probably the biggest flaw that you could find with this bike. And I would agree with that. That is probably the number one knock I could find about this bike. So here's the baseline that I was pretty much starting with. Everyone's experience could vary a little bit different from one another's. The Yamaha Bolt for me specifically, when I was going up to about, let's say 40 to 50 miles per hour, whether it was accelerating, decelerating, somewhere in that range, I would get this pretty bad wobble. Even if I just had one hand on the bar, you could still kind of lightly feel it. It would go away if you just had some form of grip and you're not just going hands off in general. In your head, you're thinking, okay, this isn't that big of a deal. I just gotta keep my hands on the bar, which isn't really a tall ask, but I don't want to have to worry about that on my motorcycle. There's already so many scary things that you could run into in general. And the last thing I want to do is have to remember that this thing gets speed wobbles and it can send me into a scenario where I'm just fully nose diving off my bike. Not fun. So I went on forums. I started with, okay, what are the most obvious things that we can address here first? Now, again, this is going to be Yamaha Bolt specific, but one thing that people called out was actually that the Bridgestone tires that came OEM from the factory, I don't know the science behind this, so don't hold me to this, but this came up a lot where people said that the tread wear pattern and the way that the geometry of the bike was and how that was set up, for whatever reason, that tread wear would somehow develop this sort of head shake and the death wobble, if you will. And I figured, okay, so my tires were about 6 years old, definitely do. Even if I didn't have the mileage on it, I still had a little bit of tread, but overall, 5+ years, it's probably a safe time to say, okay, let's get new tires. Here's the ultimate result of that. I went with, I forgot the exact model, but I went with some sort of nice Michelin, highly rated tire. I didn't cheap out on it. It ran me a few $100, but well worth the peace of mind, just knowing, hey, I'm making efforts to remedy this whole head shake issue, right? We install that, and the head shake goes away actually on acceleration, which is pretty interesting. And then on deceleration, it's still there. It's still in that 45-ish mile per hour range, and I still can't figure it out. So the next thing that is more extensive was actually the head steering bearings. So when you think about the bike, where everything pivots on your handlebars in that centerpiece part, that is going to be, we're talking about the inner bearing within that and the races that hold these ball bearings to allow you to smoothly steer left to right. So the main thing that people are calling out is that when you add in the most popular kit that I've seen is the all ball steering bearings, where it has a little bit of different design. It's not sort of the loose ball bearings, if you will, but it has the inner races where it kind of smoothly rotates around. I'll add a photo here so you have a visual. People basically said that when you upgrade it to that, that is able to remedy that issue of the head shake. It gives it a tighter seating, whatever it might be. It's a $40 part, but a lot of effort. It was a good amount of effort. I wouldn't say that it was anything mind-shattering in terms of needing any sort of specialty tools and whatnot, but it's definitely a full day's worth of work. Anyone who says that this is a 1-hour job either is a professional, has been doing it for years and has every specialty tool and things to help them and aid them, or they're just lying and they just think that they can knock this out in an hour. It's not a fast process. So do the tires first and then see where things are. Make sure you have good PSI, make sure that there's nothing wonky about your suspension geometry, make sure that that's okay and nothing's been tampered with there if you've had any fork work done or whatever it might be, and then move on to this. I have my dad and his immense amount of tools and knowledge to lean on here for that, and my brother, and we knocked this out pretty much in a day or so, give or take, of just going through it, making sure everything was seated in properly. I was actually installing T-bars. So that whole process was great. The really nice part with this was that when I did install that, I actually did not feel any more head shake within that threshold anymore, unless I really tried to engage it and kind of bump the steering hardly, you know, in a very harsh way. So that was really cool. The other thing that I will call out here is that when you have T-bars, the Yamaha Bolt specifically, and you probably don't have this for the Harley guys out there, the bars are mounted on a system where it allows a little bit of flex and play, and I hate it. Honestly, I thought it was just really weird to have handlebars not feel like they're actually bolted on the bike, to have a little bit of give to them, if you will. And this was exacerbated when we put on the T-bars, to where it just had this certain level of flex to it with the rubber grommets that were kind of built into how it was connected to the triple tray and all that. Hated that system. There's a hard mount kit that you could buy, and that's what I did. So the hard mount system with the bars, now the bars feel like they're just, I mean, they are bolted on to the triple tree into the whole system, and it feels very firm, very crisp. And we're in a good state. I don't feel the head shake anymore. I'm riding on the road, everything feels good. But months go by, I start riding the bike again, and it sort of comes back. So here are some things to basically take into consideration with your bike, since there's so many things that can cause a head shake like this. But again, the Yamaha Bolt is special, and it just has a way of always having some sort of way of initiating a death wobble. But here's what I've been doing to monitor that and keep it as safe as possible. So what I've been doing with my bike is just monitoring the PSI. I think that's a huge thing on the tires, that if you have some tread wear, right? So the tread wear actually did have an impact on the death wobble for the Yamaha Bolt. Making sure that as the tread wear keeps going, as I ride more, that I'm keeping a consistent PSI. And there's been times where I just rode down to San Diego. I did a 90-mile ride, and right before I thought, hey, you know, it's been maybe a month or so, maybe I should check my PSI, and it was lower than I anticipated. So always check your PSI. The whole point of that, again, is to make sure that you're having consistency across the board, and that it's not developing a weird wear on the tread pattern in general. And that should help, again, keep consistency and remedying the whole issue with the death wobble in the first place. When I do that, and after doing all those steps to get this bike to hard mounted bars, to new tires, to new head steering bearings, it's remedied the death wobble as much as I possibly can. So about 90% of the time, if all of those things are consistent, I really don't feel it. But if I'm hunting for it and I'm kind of trying to see if it's still there, sometimes it can pop up just slightly and I feel it. It's a little bit frustrating, but we're doing the best we can. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I figured it would be worth making a whole video on this topic because, one, I love the Yamaha Bolt, and I still do stand by the fact that I think people should definitely look into it if you like cruisers. I think it's a great looking bike. Check out my review video if you want to hear my honest opinions. But then secondly, if this helps you in any way, I was on forums, I was doing all this research and doing everything I can to figure out the way to fix this, and it sounds like overall there's not going to be a perfect answer, but this is what's been the most helpful for me. So I hope that in turn it helps you in a way. I'm trying to keep a consistent schedule of about a video a week and trying to get back on the bike and do some more moto vlogs themselves, but would love to hear you guys' feedback on any other content that you'd like to see, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.